Welcome to the Kitsap Matters podcast. In each episode, we discuss the people, places, and things that make Kitsap County unique, covering local entertainment, restaurants, business, government, and anything else we find interesting, troubling, or just plain amusing. A brief disclosure, this is a community-focused podcast, not a financial podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise. And since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corporation, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corporation. Hi, you're listening to the Kitsap Matters podcast. I'm Kevin Campbell. I'm here with my co-host, Christine Campbell, and we're thrilled to have Charlie Thompson, the director of Fishline, which is a historic food bank here in Kitsap County, on the show today. Thanks for being here, Charlie.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So now, if you're familiar with Peaks Financial, you've probably heard of our sale formula. This process is all about the key parts of our planning philosophy, with the first four letters of formula, FORM, representing family, occupation, recreation, and money. It's about what matters most and what you can control. And what's fun about our planning process and our approach is that it also provides a great outline for interviews like this. So today we're going to be diving into Charlie's story and what matters to him, as well as touching on Fishline. So let's jump right in and get started. Thanks for being here again.
You bet.
Yay.
Awesome. So Charlie, you recently moved to Kitsap and took over as director of Fishline, right?
That's correct. About 6 months ago, actually.
And where were you before that?
Minnesota.
So did you leave your snow shovel there, or did you bring it with you?
I think we brought one but left the other.
You know, when you have to own more than one snow shovel?
Yeah.
That's right. Tells you everything you need to
Now
know.
you just need a hairdryer.
Right.
Right, yeah. So about 6 months ago, so tell us about the journey real quick about how did you end up at Fishline, and but you also, I believe you also already had ties to Kitsap County. Is that right?
Yes.
So tell us about that story.
So going back to when my wife and I met, she's from Portland, Oregon. So we met in the Portland area, and we bounced around a little bit. We spent some time in Tacoma before going back to Minnesota. And when we were in Tacoma, we became familiar with Paulsbo and this whole neck of the woods. And, got the itch to find something new while I was in Minnesota and stumbled across Fishline, and the rest is history, as they say.
Cool. And so how much did the snow have to do with it?
Oh my goodness. I like the fact I can choose to go to the snow if I want to.
Yes.
That's
It's an hour away.
That's right.
When we moved here in 2016, we were because we can live anywhere because of the kind of work we do. We can live anywhere, and we have clients in I think 37 states. So we do a lot of Zoom work already. So we could live anywhere. So we actually did talk. When we first talked about moving, we're like, we think we want to go to the Northwest, but we did actually consider the entire country. We're like, okay, before we do this, let's make sure that that's really where we want to go. What other options are there, and do we want to think about it? And one of the primary rules was I do not ever want to live anywhere again that I have to own a snow shovel.
Right.
That was actually on the list, was no snow shovels required. And you're right, I love the fact that we can be right here. We can be in the mountains in the snow in an hour if we want to be in the winter, but we don't have to shovel snow, so that's wonderful. So how did you end up as director of Fishline?
So I've been working in nonprofits for about 16 years now. Have had the opportunity to be an executive level for about 14 of those years. And with Fishline, I was always kind of looking back at the Northwest, in the last year or so that I was at my previous organization, and saw the posting, made the leap, and made the best argument, I guess.
Awesome. Right, you won.
And when you were talking about this move with the kids, what were they? Were they nervous about it? I know that we brought our kids here.
Yeah, nervous is one way of putting it. Yeah, I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. And they didn't take the news particularly well back in January when we told them. But they did stick around and finish the school year. I moved out in February, so I came out ahead of them. But they actually just had the first day of school yesterday.
And how'd they like it?
They loved it.
Good.
Awesome. That's great.
Good.
So let's see, when we moved here, ours were, so your oldest is starting what grade?
Eighth grade.
Okay, so we were one year ahead as when we moved to the Northwest, and our kids were, Lindsay was going into 9th grade and Quinn was going into 5th? 6th. And so, yeah, that's right, yeah. So, same kind of thing, as they were really nervous about it. Actually, the first time we brought them here, we didn't actually even tell them that we were thinking about moving. We brought them here on an exploratory trip, and then just before we got here, we told them, hey, we're kind of thinking about moving into this area.
We're
and they're
gonna
like,
hate it.
They're like, we're really excited about the trip, but we hope we hate it at the same time, right? Because we hope that, because they were nervous about the move. And we'd get up here, and we spent some time in Seattle, and we spent some time out here in Kitsap, and we asked the kids, we're like, so how's that whole hating it thing going for you? And they're like, not real well. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
So, and here we are, 7 years later now, I guess, and everybody loves it.
Yeah.
It's tough to move when you're at that age, but the realization we had was, if we're going to move, we need to do it soon, because once they start high school and all that, you're kind of stuck for a while. Then they really don't want to move once they start high school.
That's right.
And I figured I always want my kids to come home to me. So wherever I am needs to be home for them first, because otherwise they're just coming to visit me.
Yeah, our original plan was we were going to retire up here, and but I was like, one day I was like, well, why are we waiting? Let's go.
Right.
So, anyways, that's how we ended up here. But so you've got two kids, so daughters,
a daughter, 8-year-old daughter, 13-year-old son.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, what is an important lesson that you think you learned from your parents?
Oh boy, I think part of it is to be grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
But also the importance of community. I'm the oldest of 7.
Wow.
And my kind of origin story, as it were, is all about community stepping up and helping my parents, who worked hard. And Dad would move around for jobs, and we would move with him, of course. Mom was at home raising the kids, but they needed help. Yeah. And so that's always stuck with me, is that idea of community and helping each other out, to make life work.
Which
I was wondering how you got into nonprofit work, and it sounds like it's been part of your DNA, and that whole giving back and the whole community, that speaks to me too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a part of my whole life.
And I was going to say, and obviously not only with Fishline are you involved in the community, but also with Rotary, which is where we met Charlie. Was at the Polesville Rotary.
That's correct.
And some of our first interactions were sawing trees.
That's right.
Doing work parties and trying to help with the community. Speaking of community, we're helping clean up one of the community parks.
Absolutely.
So, occupation, so we talked about, so how did you get into nonprofits?
Yeah, the actual nonprofit work, I kind of stumbled across it. I was in the midst of a bit of a life transition myself. Met Kim, my wife. She got accepted to grad school at Notre Dame, which moved us from Portland to South Bend. So I was looking to restart my career. Stumbled across a nonprofit there, got hired on, and within a couple of years, I was the executive director. So, yeah, and I love it, and and again, it relates back to really being able to give back to the community and to, in a way, pay it forward for all the benefits that I've received, as a child and so forth.
So, Kitsap really matters to you.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
So, what's the most challenging part about being the director at Fishline?
I think, we see people often sometimes at their worst moment, people who maybe have never had to ask for help before. And while I'm not necessarily on the front lines, it's supporting the volunteers and staff who are. And that, can be challenging because, you have to keep that motivation and that desire to help, because it's not easy, and we're seeing a lot of need. We're seeing a lot of people who are new to Fishline right now with all the struggles that people are having. So, really just trying to keep it positive and lift everyone up and keep them motivated to keep doing the work. That's a real challenge.
I think it's interesting from Fishline is obviously we know about Fishline. We've helped support Fishline. We've helped raise money for Fishline. And actually, I think we did a pretty good job last year. I think.
Yes, indeed.
So we kind of threw down a challenge to the Poulsbo Yacht Club, and they certainly answered it with I believe it was $25,000 that was raised by the Poulsbo Yacht Club. So way to be Poulsbo Yacht Club.
That's
you guys did awesome.
Yeah.
And guess what's coming? Right, we're gonna be back. I'm sure this year. Trying to do that again. So that's awesome. But I thought it was interesting. I didn't know this until I started when I was just looking up a little bit about Fishline in preparation for this. I didn't realize that it was one of the oldest food banks in the United States.
It is.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, 1967 we were founded, and our kind of claim is we're about the second food bank in the United States. And we've been growing, we've been evolving. We're more than a food bank now, offering comprehensive services, whether that's mental health counseling or a shower program. We have our thrift stores that also are able to give away clothing and other essential items. So we've really broadened what we do for the community.
Which is awesome.
That's great.
How, I don't want to get too much on it. We're going to get into Fishline here in a minute, so I don't want to spend too much time on Fishline yet. Real quick, Kitsap County, let's talk about where we live and the awesome recreation that is here in Kitsap County. There's so much to do.
Absolutely.
We were always kind of joke about the fact that here's, we're recording this in September? What month is it?
Almost
September. Almost the beginning of September. Which is summer starting to wind down, and we always kind of laugh about the fact that I actually kind of look forward a little bit to summer winding down a little bit because we are so busy in summer. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Every night there's concerts, there's recreation. We go out crabbing all the time, so we're out catching Dungeness crabs and cooking them, and there's hiking and there's just so much to do. So summers here are literally exhausting. Because they're just so much fun. What are your favorite things to do in Kitsap? What do you love about Kitsap County? And so there's two questions specific to Kitsap I've got for you. What's your favorite thing to do in Kitsap? And what's one you think is like one of the best kept secrets in Kitsap?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like something you know about that you're like, hey, I bet a lot of people don't know about this, but it's really cool.
Sure. Well, first of all, we love getting outdoors. We love getting out hiking in particular, and we even take our kids. I think the first hike we took them on out in this area was about a 6 or 7 mile hike, which for 13 and 8-year-olds is asking an awful lot, but they were troopers. So we love getting out and hiking. One of the things that I've enjoyed is just the kind of the social life. I think for a relatively small community, there's a lot going on here. To me, that was the biggest surprise, was to learn just how much
we got a little bit of a party going on here.
There's so much going on. Now, granted, for the first 4 or 5 months I was here, I was on my own, so I maybe got to enjoy it in a different way than I can now with the family. But, just there's live music in the restaurants and the breweries. There's the music in the park. There's just all the shops and the people watching, and there's just so much going on, and that's what I've really loved that. We lived in a community. We loved the community, but it was more of a bedroom community where we came from. This is not that. This is so much more, going on, and that to me was perhaps the biggest surprise, and the thing that I would say anyone thinking about settling down in this area, there's a lot to do right here.
It's a cool area, and obviously we have the significant growth going on right now in the county as well. But you're right, it's like I love the music scene in Poulsbo. We love live music. By the way, another plug for something coming up is going to be the first annual Poulsbo Blues and Jazz Festival.
Lovingly referred to as PB&J.
PB&J, which is going to be in February of 2024, right here in Poulsbo, and being, I believe, sponsored by Rotary at some level. I'm not sure exactly where all that is, but that's going to be something really cool. And that is actually that day. The town is going to be taken over by live music. There will be live music in almost every venue within a walking distance of downtown. Something like 17 bands coming. And this is going to be a lot of fun. So the music scene here is cool, and it's funny. Like when we're traveling somewhere else on business or whatever, and we're like, hey, let's go find some live music, and we can't find it. And we're in Poulsbo. You can I'll ask somebody like, hey, where's some live music going on? They're like, Bubba's down the street maybe has live music one night a week or
Right.
something like that. And in Poulsbo, in this area, Poulsbo, Silverdale, Kitsap County, you can find something going on pretty much every night of the week.
Right.
Yeah.
There is music somewhere going on, which is really
Brother
cool.
Don's has music every
Brother
night.
Don's down in Bremerton.
Downpour has live music. Most of the wineries now have live music, and you can go out and listen to music any night of the week.
Yep, pretty much. So yeah, it's a fun place. Kitsap, and personally, obviously, we're while we love Kitsap County, we're a little partial to Poulsbo as well.
Sure.
So what do you do other than hiking? What do you do in your free time? What are you into? Are you into arts, sports, foods? Where are people going to catch you when you're not at Fishline?
Sure. Well, I love checking out all the seafood that's available. Coming from the Midwest, it's kind of sketchy if you're eating seafood,
Right.
so it's nice to get fresh seafood. So I'm looking forward to kind of learning how to make it myself. But
Awesome.
I enjoy going out and eating it as well. I enjoy our breweries and our wineries are, just fun places to be and to hang out. And we just like bumming around the area. We'll go on bike rides early Saturday and Sunday mornings around the area. The hills are killer around here.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Now you know why you see so many e-bikes here.
Yeah, that's right. So we do get out. We get out biking. Kim and I do. But just taking the kids out exploring and everything, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And speaking of the breweries, I've heard it said before. I don't know if it's actually true, but I've heard it said before that Kitsap County has, or maybe Poulsbo. I don't know if it was
just
Poulsbo
Poulsbo.
or Kitsap County has more brew pubs per capita than anywhere else in the country.
Wow. I
Which,
believe it.
if you count them, you'd be like, okay, right in
Yeah.
the city limits, we have a city limit population of about 12,000,
Yeah.
and we have, but I think at least 6 brew pubs in
Yeah.
Something like
within
that.
that
Yep.
range. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
there's a lot. So if you like beer and live music with a great outdoor lifestyle, Poulsbo's the place.
Yeah.
But don't tell too many people, okay? Money. Let's talk about money a little bit. Obviously, so this show, the Kitsap Matters podcast, obviously sponsored by Peaks Financial, but it's not really a financial show per se. But we do like to touch on that a little bit. But so tell me, who has the most influence in your financial life, right? Were there lessons learned early on? And it can be good or bad. Some people are like,
Yeah.
I watched my parents do everything horribly wrong. And so that's been a huge motivating factor to me. I mean,
Yeah.
so, or
Yeah.
hey, my parents were great with money, or my grandparents were great with money.
Yeah.
What are some of your biggest influences from a financial side?
Well, I have to say, and this is kind of maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, but my wife, because she manages the finances at home, so I can manage them at Fishline. That's our deal, But seriously, no, watching my parents, and how they manage money, and what I think is interesting, at least what I experienced, is that that change from managing your pocketbook manually to all this online stuff and everything, and just how it's different. And
Yeah.
and I think in some ways, you have to be more aware of what's going on, because it's just so easy to get.
It's real easy
in-
to spend money
Yep,
these days.
It's easy to spend money, and I think that's something that I'm always aware of. And I remember back to seeing my dad balancing the checkbook at the kitchen table, and everything, and just remembering, hey, you got to keep an eye on things, even if it's on an app somewhere. It's even more important to keep an eye on that. But yeah, just growing up, observing that, kitchen table finances and everything, and then I've been fortunate that I've learned so much because, with my line of work, I get to work with bookkeepers and CPAs, and so I've been able to pick up a lot more financial prowess that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to have.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So when you think about the word retirement, what comes to mind for you? Now, and real quick, I'll give you a little context here.
Yeah.
We often have, like in our financial practice, what we see people coming in is people who some are already retired. Some people have a retirement date etched into their desk, right? Or we actually
A
have
countdown clock.
Yep.
Some
Yep.
people
we
with
have a
countdown
We have
clocks.
one client who's got a countdown clock going,
Yeah.
and so people who are like, I'm retiring on, January 1st of this year or whatever the number is, and then the third category is people who are like, what we refer to as work optional, where they're like, yeah, someday I'm going to retire, but I'm not in a big rush to do it.
Yeah.
So when you think about retirement, what do you envision for yourself, and what kind of for some people retirement sounds super exciting. For some people,
Sure.
it kind of sounds scary.
Sure.
Tell me what you think.
I think I'd like to retire someday, but I don't have a countdown going. I think I'm fortunate to really enjoy what it is I get to do. And so in that sense, I hope to continue doing that for many years to come. But I fully expect that I'm going to be working longer than, say, my dad worked,
right.
And that's okay. And I also think the nature of work's changing, where I don't think I'll ever not be doing something as long as I'm able to do something.
Yeah.
So it may be pulling back, but never really fully letting go of work.
That's the work option. That's what you're going to go into that work optional category.
Work optional lifestyle.
Which is me. That's frankly, that's me as well. I have no intention of retiring, and even if at some point I will slow down. I won't be working at the same pace that I am. But the idea of retirement, probably not going to happen.
Too much to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Too much to do.
For sure.
I think it's interesting how people do that. But I think, and we're starting to see a lot more of that these days, is kind of what we refer to as like a phased retirement.
Yeah.
One of the things that's cool, though, too, is how do you know when you're work optional, right? So that requires some math.
Sure.
Sometimes that's one of the things that we help people do is figure out the math so they know, because that's one of the biggest questions we get when people come in is, am I there yet? Can I retire? And sometimes knowing that you can retire is enough of a pressure release to keep you working, right? I mean, once you realize that, hey, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be, there's a big mind shift that happens at that point. That's kind of fun.
For sure.
We've seen that happen in many clients' cases.
So what, from your perspective, what is wrong with the financial services industry? What can we do better?
Oh, boy. Well, I guess in my world, we often talk a lot about people who are banked and unbanked. And sometimes the people who are struggling the most, part of it is they're unbanked. And so in order to engage in the financial industry, it's so incredibly costly, whether that's payday lenders or otherwise.
Right. Yeah.
So I think, just from my vantage point, when I think about those we serve, there needs to be some better checks and balances, and people need to be able to, if they need money, be able to afford to get it and not be caught in this loop of just constantly just paying the interest and such. I think that's, from my perspective with Fishline, I think that's really the biggest thing that I see. It's just how do we make banking accessible to everyone, and not so many fees and punitive type things. And such.
$35 bounce check fees nonstop, and all that.
It's really tough for a lot of folks, and I believe most people aren't intentionally trying to bounce that check. They're trying to figure out how to juggle it and everything. Yeah.
I think a great piece of advice for people that are having issues with that is these days most people aren't writing checks. They're usually using a debit card.
Yeah.
And most banks, you can tell that bank to not allow you to overdraft.
Right.
And so that works at most banks. As far as I know, every bank will do that. Basically, now the unfortunate side is that means that if you go to swipe the card and there's not enough money in the account, it's going to decline.
Right.
But it's not going to then hit you for $35 every time.
Right.
So that's for people who are having that kind of an issue. That's actually an option for them. Is if they don't have the money. So if the issue is financial discipline, where they don't, as you mentioned, they're not intentionally bouncing checks. That's one way to stop that. Is one, don't use checks, use a debit card, and two, tell the bank to not allow you to overdraft.
That's right.
So let's talk some more about Fishline. What goes on there? Yeah. So tell us, how many people does Fishline serve each year?
Sure, it's thousands. It really is. For instance. Right now we're closing out the month of August, and we're going to have, we might get close to 800 households just in the month of August. I think that 800 households, that could be anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 people in a household. So, I mean, it's tens of thousands of people that we're coming into contact each and every year at Fishline.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is, and it's going up.
Now, is Fishline serve primarily Kitsap, or is it primarily so it serves the whole county, or is it parts of the county? Is there other food banks within the county?
Sure, there are other food banks within the county. We're one of 5. We tend to focus on North Kitsap. However, we will if you come to us and you need to use our food market, you're going to be able to use our food market. We focus a lot of our other programs on North Kitsap. whether that's financial assistance with rent and utilities, or children's programming such as athletics. So we'll pay for athletic fees or equipment or other activity fees. Those are some of the more common things other than food. Food is the most common thing people seek out.
That was one of the most interesting things to me as I've learned more about Fishline, is that well, you think of it just as a food bank. That's where people go when they need food. But there's so many other services they offer. There's showers. People can come if they're homeless and they need a place to shower. They can come shower.
That's right.
Talk about some of those other services.
Sure.
And you just mentioned a few of them, but I think there's a lot of stuff that's surprising that Fishline provides that most people wouldn't even think of.
Sure, and really, it's been in the past 5 years this huge transition to a multi-service organization. We opened our current facility in 2018 with the vision of it being a comprehensive services center. So that's really when we kind of went all in on more than food. So we offer, I mentioned financial assistance, primarily to help keep people housed. So rent and utility assistance. We have mental health counselors on staff. No cost mental health care for folks. We know that's a huge need for mental health therapy, and so we're very proud to be able to offer that. We offer a lot of other kid programs. We offer birthday fairies, so we'll help make sure your kiddo gets gifts, a birthday cake. We do the holiday gift program, which the Yacht Club was so generous in supporting last year, and again this year. That's we hope. And let's see, the shower program. For people who don't have access to water, I mean, you talk about. It's transformational. I mean, it's physically transformational. That's where our volunteers that help support that program will talk about. It's just unbelievable to see people transform from a shower, something that most of us take for granted.
Right.
And it makes all the difference in their life. We offer outdoor provisions. So, there's not a lot of all-night shelters in the area, and sometimes people just need a sleeping bag. They need something to help them get through the night. So we try to make that a little bit easier for them to get through the night and everything. And, yes, we're kind of on the outside looking in on summer, but, and winter's coming, and, we're seeing that unhoused population increase, not just in North Kitsap, but across the county, and that's something we're keeping an eye on as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned having counselors on staff. Are you working with Kitsap Mental Health Services, or is this, are you in conjunction with them?
Sure. So we're working with AM/FM mental health care. So we actually contract with them to provide mental health counselors. And again, we have 2 counselors on staff, and they're seeing people Monday through Friday. It's a great addition, in addition to our case managers who are meeting with folks. And, we're looking at budgets. We're looking at, okay, what's working and what's not working in your situation. And the cost of housing, that is the big concern for most folks, is just being able to afford to live here. And that's something that every day when I go in the office, we're talking about, okay, how do we help keep more people housed? How do we tell that story of, we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
We need people to live where they work.
Yeah.
And that's not just a challenge here in Kitsap. It's a lot in the Pacific Northwest, but that's happening nationally with everything that's gone over the last couple of years.
Yep.
But it's a significant issue here.
Absolutely.
Housing in this area, although it's nowhere near as bad as Seattle, it's much more affordable than Seattle.
Sure.
But it's still a very expensive place to live.
Absolutely.
And that's a challenge for a lot of folks. So, on the topic of Fishline, I was actually surprised by Fishline's budget as well when I heard those numbers. How big is the budget for Fishline annually?
Sure.
And where does that money come from?
Yep. So our budget is about $4.5 million, give or take. About half of that would be considered in kind. So we get a lot of food donations, we get a lot of clothing donations, and other things that people give in kind, and about half of that is cash. So that comes from generous individuals in our community, businesses, government contracts and grants, and then about a third of our cash income comes from the revenue of our thrift store, Second Season. So it's a variety of different sources. One of the things you have to be wary of is, putting all your eggs in one basket, and we try not to do that. And so we've diversified, our sources of income. But at the end of the day, it takes the support of the community to make it work.
That's seems like crazy high numbers when the fact of, like, when you think about, I had no idea that it had, and I'm not being judgmental here. I think it's amazing,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
I also had no idea how much service was going on there and what all's happening. But it's like when you think about the fact that Fishline's budget is $4.5 million, and you're one of 5 food banks in the county. Right. I mean, that just, to me, that the bigger thing is like, wow, I didn't realize there was that much need.
That's
That's the bigger factor.
I didn't realize that
is
the
like,
need
wow.
was that great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome that you're there and and people can have these services. You just didn't realize it was that.
It is not unusual when I arrive at the office in the morning to have people already lined up to enter our food bank, our market. And people can come up to once a week. We recognize that everybody's situation is different. Some people have more need than others, and so. But the need is great, and we're seeing dozens of new to us households each and every month.
Wow!
And that's a trend that we got to get our hands around. We got to figure that out, because if more and more new people, because the other people who need us are still coming too, and so that's what's creating that increased need. Yeah.
So, do you have do you have an organization, or do you have access to people who do what you do, so you guys can get together and say, oh my gosh, how are you addressing this, because I could really use some tips over here?
Yeah.
Or is the need so great everywhere that you're all just looking for the same answers?
Well, yes and yes, I would say. We're part of the Kitsap Food Bank Coalition, so all the food banks within Kitsap County, also Mason County is a part of it. We get together monthly and compare notes, and sometimes we're asking the same questions, and other times we're able to help each other out and such. So that's one coalition we're involved in. As we, lean into that multi-service, comprehensive service side, we want to get involved with housing and homelessness coalitions. We're really involved with the city of Paulsbo and meeting with them as they're trying to address very similar, if not exactly the same things we are.
Right.
So we have good partners at the city, and at the county level as well. But we're part of many different coalitions, and then you roll that in, we have faith communities who are big supporters of ours, and, try to listen to what they're seeing, because a lot of people in need might approach a faith community for help and everything. And just our volunteers, hundreds of volunteers, and really trying to engage them in getting feedback. What are you seeing? Not just at Fishline, but in the community, so that we can better serve. And then finally, the last thing I'd say is, we were one of the funders of the Kitsap County Needs Assessment that took place in last year, and the report came out this past spring, and we've been analyzing that. We've had a task force of board members and staff looking into how might those results influence what we do moving forward.
Wow.
Yeah, significant things with the growth going on in the county.
Right.
I know from talking to city leaders and listening to the police chief and county commissioners at various events, that the growth here is significant, and it's going to be stressing those resources even more.
Yep.
All public resources and as well as things like Fishline as well. So how can people, couple things, how can people help?
Sure.
And how can people get help?
Yep. So people can help, and make no bones about it, we need financial support. So we're looking for people to make those financial contributions. We also need volunteers, so gifts of time is important as well. People can help by cleaning out their closets, those gently used items. We're always looking for more items for our thrift stores. Food drives, those are ways that people can help. toiletry items. Often, we don't talk about the non-food items that we need. We need toiletry items. We need hygiene items. We give out those through our shower program as well as our food market. So those are just some of the ways that people can help. Now, if people need help, I encourage you, visit our website, fishlinehelps.org. There's different drop-down menus that you can access. Give us a call. We're open Monday through Friday. Our lobby's open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. We're open about 36 hours a week through our food bank. In fact, we just expanded our hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're now open until 7 p.m. That's to try and make ourselves more accessible to people in need. So we've been expanding our hours. Those are all ways that people can come to us. And don't rule yourself out. Don't think that you won't be able to get assistance. I think that's one of the things. Sometimes people say, oh, I know someone who needs help, but I don't need help. Well, if you're struggling, seek us out. We're there to say yes. We're there to do what we can to help you out. And more often than not, we can find a way.
That's great, and that's great to think about as well, because I'm sure you're right. There's people out there who could probably use a hand, but they'll think, hey, there's no way, which that's often people's experience is, hey, a lot of people in life, it seems like they make too much to, they don't make enough to actually meet their needs, but they always make too much to qualify for assistance in various ways. So if that's been your experience, maybe not look at it that way. Go check it out and see if you can get help.
Look, people are working hard. When hard work isn't enough, that's when Fishline comes in.
Right.
So. That's a really good way to put that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, I've got the last question.
Oh.
If you're ready for it.
Okay.
It's kind of a two-part question.
All right.
If you were to have a TV reality show, number one, what would you call it? And number two, what would the premise be?
Oh boy, what would I call it? A TV reality show. What would I call it, and what would the premise be? I think I'd call it How to Live Your Best Life While Building Community.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Sure, we'll go with that. Well, it's about Kitsap. It's about helping people in Kitsap while you're living in paradise.
Ooh.
I mean, that's. I think there's people in need all over.
Yeah.
And there's people in need right here. And we have a beautiful community.
Yeah.
So I want to do my part to support people to be able to live their best life
all
here
right.
in Kitsap.
That sounds like a great program.
I agree, and I love, we've talked about all the beautiful things in Kitsap County and Poulsbo and the area and all of the wonders that are here. But I agree, the community here is something else as well. Mm-hmm. It's not just the restaurants and the music and the breweries and all the recreation.
It is the community.
It's the people that are here
Mm-hmm.
that really make it a very unique place to be, and a place that we're very happy to call home.
Yeah.
So, Charlie, thanks a lot. You have anything else you want to say about Fishline or anything?
Hey, like I said, we're here to help. So please contact us.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks for being on the show. We appreciate you being here. And we'll be back with more episodes of the Kitsap Matters podcast. Thanks for being and thanks for listening to us today. Bye-bye. A brief disclosure. This is a community-focused podcast, not a financial podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise. And since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corporation, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corporation.